Welcome to another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm-Up Sessions podcast. Thank you so much for joining us once again. And Sergei's feeling a little nasally, a little stuffy.
Something like that.
What's going on?
It's the weather's, man.
The cold?
The weather's
The
cold
flu?
got me. I might have the flu. I haven't had the flu in a long time. You know what's the funny thing is I feel like COVID protected us from the flu.
That's true. That is
I haven't
actually
had the flu in a very long
strange.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I washed my hands more.
Could be.
Maybe I didn't have anyone cough on me. I don't know.
You stayed away from people. That would make sense.
For sure.
So,
Yeah, but I don't know what's going on.
yeah, it's pretty fun. I was just talking to somebody who also just got out of feeling sick, and there's a couple more people, which I think is normal for the weather, but also it feels like everything switched so fast here. Like literally it was like 60s, boom, and then all of a sudden 30s midday. Like it's been chilly as heck out there.
Even more. Remember the fires just happened, what, a month ago? 2 months ago?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we just had like very
forest
smoky,
fires.
insane, and then all of a sudden, boom.
Snowed.
It
snowed
was
on Monday.
Dumping snow that day. I mean, it all melted really quick, but
insane. Did you,
very strange.
Because you have a nice drive.
Very weird.
Oh, well, I don't know. You can see the mountains on your way home.
Oh, of
Mount
course.
Baker Highway. I never drive in the morning there. I always drive at night.
Yeah.
Oh, but it looks like there's a lot of snow up there.
This morning, it was, yesterday morning, it was beautiful. So I was up, going out at like 6:30 in the morning, and even the hills, the rolling hills, it's not even that high elevation. We're just coated with this beautiful, crispy, like layer of just white snow. The golden ears out in the distance. Yeah. Just getting lit up by the sunrise. It was very
Goshen
beautiful.
Hill. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely incredible. But yeah, it's been really cold. I wasn't really super stoked about the snow. I'm not ready for it. And then the machine threw me off. The machine started rumbling.
Yeah. Do I need to turn it off?
No, it's okay. I think it's in standby mode.
Yeah, that was like in eco mode. Eco mode warms it up.
We have a Breville dual boiler here in the office. Pulling espresso with a Breville dual boiler in the EK43S grinder. It's a great combo.
Honestly, I'm an awful home barista. I don't even know how those things work.
Why do you need to if you spend 40 hours a week inside of a cafe pulling espresso? So, let's pour some batchy. Get some drip going. And, I will say I just got a WDT tool. I caved in to all the hype that people were talking about. You need a WDT tool. All those viral videos of like Tanner, with the
Struggles.
Yeah. And I caved in. I was like, I just want to give it a shot. I don't know if it's gonna make a difference. I'm usually very skeptical. I don't know if you guys have noticed that on the pod. I'm skeptical about all things like that become a trend or everything. I'm just like, please, call me old school, which is ironic for this podcast episode, but call me old school, but I just I like the tried and true basics. So anyways, I got the WDT tool from Barista Hustle, and I will say, especially with the EK43, the shot experience was insane. I mean, I might even say it was like double the experience.
Yeah.
Like it's a massive experience difference, for the better. Like shots are way more tastier, way more sweeter, way more balanced, it's a really extraordinary shot experience. Like,
I mean, it's no joke. Puck prep is probably one of the most important parts of pulling espresso.
I mean, I guess.
I mean, what
basics? I guess going back to the basics. So it's
What other thing do you need to do in like pulling espresso? Press the button. I mean, majority of the time is puck prep, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's also a lot of room for it to make a mistake. Not to go off on a tangent, but I feel like those little things like the WDT tool, even as small as handling your portafilter when you're putting it into your group head, All of those things can really, really change the flavor and the taste of your espresso. Yeah, like classic. You see someone in the middle of the rush, like try to bang their, like take the portafilter and try to stick it in the group head, and they're missing it. Doesn't matter what you did. You probably just messed up that puck. Dump it out. Pull a new one.
Oh god.
Anyway, that's a whole nother story.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, Anyways, it made a really extraordinary difference, and it really reignited my passion for pulling espresso here at the office. I'm usually a big filter fan, so I prioritize filter all the time. But wow, this has really excited me about it, and it's given me hope that maybe the EK isn't that bad of a grinder for espresso.
I mean, it's been good enough for the world stage.
For espresso?
What is it?
Is that what they used?
I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. No, I'm wrong. Brewer. I'm totally wrong. Yeah.
Anyways, we have some drip.
Yeah.
What is
this? Is awful. Do we choose the wrong coffee? Maybe I put something else because this tastes awful. Maybe I didn't count it because I was doing like portioning like 4 different coffees, trying to get that shot of espresso. Maybe I mixed something up here. Or I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I don't know.
I don't think it's awful. It just doesn't have much nuance.
No.
Or intrigue.
It's also pretty thin, huh? Don't you think?
Also, kind of tastes under extracted.
Yeah.
Like sour. Like that finish on the back end is sour.
Which is very thin.
Which, if it's sour, it makes sense why there's not much going on.
No.
If it's under extracted.
Just tastes like muddy water to me.
I mean, it's not that bad. I don't think so. Not as bad as you're saying, at least, but it's definitely not great.
I feel like I'm enjoying this less than the dark roast the other week. I don't know. I don't like it, folks. There you have it. Maybe it's slightly over extracted. No, I'm just kidding. Everything's over extracted on this podcast, but this is definitely thin and sour.
Yeah, it's sour, but I will say on the back end, I'm still getting actually quite a bit of fruit, like a fruity aftertaste.
Dude, you're scaring me. Maybe I need a COVID test.
No, in the aftertaste, it has those fruit qualities, but it's definitely missing quite a bit. Well, that's what happens when you I don't know, maybe did something wrong. Or
I have a feeling I mixed up the coffees. But then I don't know.
Because I will say when we cupped this coffee, what it's supposed to be, this coffee tasted outstanding.
Yeah.
It was very nice. This is coffee that we're gearing up to release. And I know after our just like conversation of being very disappointed with this coffee, but we did cup it and it was very nice. Like, I'm not much of a naturals guy, but I will say this is nice. It's good. It's good. It's something it's something I'm gonna enjoy. Yep. Enjoy brewing every once in a while. I don't know why I have this lens cap in my back pocket, but anyways, I'm gonna enjoy sipping on it over the next coming months. So speaking of the next couple months, holiday blends. What do you think about them?
I actually like the one that Velton has.
You do?
Yeah, it's a Wash Kenyan and a natural Ethiopian 50-50. Probably gonna serve that one in espresso. Yeah, that's gonna be fun. That'll be fun. Yeah, I was just joking around with Max about dialing in blends. It's just been a very long time since I've dialed in a blend. It's gonna be a fun adventure.
A lot of complications.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
I have my beef with blends, but honestly, I like this one. I think on batch blends do really, really well. So I'm excited. I like a holiday blend. We've had good experience with holiday blends. So
yeah, I tried the holiday blend. I think that's what you gave me. Yeah. It's not bad. It's good.
Yeah.
It's solid. Yeah, I think there's something to say for like a really solid holiday blend or blend in general. Like that's like just really good, that packs a punch. That I think the biggest issue with them is oftentimes you're either over or under extracting them.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's both in one cup. But if you can get a blend that's like killer and that's solid and that just works, that's already a huge win right there.
Yeah.
So
it's also, I think blends are also super difficult from a roaster's perspective.
yes.
Because there's different approaches to blends. Sometimes blends are like kind of you create a very generic flavor profile of multiple, like a lot of coffees. But if you intentionally are trying to pair different flavors, then you have to talk about the development of each coffees to make sure that it's soluble at the same level. And that can also be complicated because if you make one coffee more soluble, you'll lose a lot of the nuance of the other coffee.
Right.
So it actually takes a massive amount of skill to have a blend that's very well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I think I'm stoked for Woods to drop their holiday blend. I'm usually a fan of their blends, even though they could have a little too many coffees in there, in my opinion. But somehow it turns out really solid. They serve it on batch brew, which again is like a hit or miss. But if you can get a solid batch brew at Woods of their holiday blend, it slaps. And some of the coffees that I know they put in that Shea has told me, they're not skimping out on coffees, I'll tell you that. So
that's dope.
It's exciting. But
do they pre or post blend?
I'm not, I know for all their other blends they pre.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't know if they do that with the holiday. I don't think they do that for the holiday, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
So Serge, so you just picked up a espresso machine for home?
Yeah. I already refunded it.
Wow, that's unfortunate.
It was too quick.
Wow.
Man.
Why did you get an espresso machine in the first place if you work at a cafe?
Well, one, preparing coffee at home is a whole different experience than preparing coffee at a cafe. So it was basically for experience. I don't need more coffee at home, hands down. Two, Deja kind of wanted something. Deja was kind of the tipping factor. I always fantasize about getting an espresso machine, and you and I always talk about it. Of course, the Breville in the office and all that. But when Deja was like, "Yeah, it would be nice to like be able to like steam some milk or even just have like some espresso at home and not have to go into a cafe." Because for me, honestly, even when I'm not working, I'm usually going to a cafe. I go. Yeah. I have espresso. No joke. 7 days a week.
Yeah.
I'm not exaggerating. So I think part of that reason was like, oh man, on my day offs, it might be nice to just not go and get espresso somewhere and just get it at home. So that was the thing. And obviously now I'm like verbalizing that, and it's kind of like dumb or like stupid of me to invest so much money for like 1 or 2 days a week. But I don't know if this is going to be part of our topic. Did you see what was it Jimmy said on about buying home gear, and he broke down the numbers? Was it Jimmy or was it Kyle? That was Kyle. One of the Instagram folks said about how much money you can save by brewing coffee at home and how much it would cost, because people are always worried about the upfront cost and be like, oh, it's not worth it. Let's go to a cafe. But if you break it down like per shot and how many shots a day you have, it's actually pretty affordable to make coffee at home.
Really?
Yeah.
I was not expecting that. I guess it depends on what your setup is looking like.
Right. Yeah.
Like, for example, like this setup, if you were to go buy it at the store, like brand new.
Yeah.
I don't know how many shots of espresso you'd have to pull and how much your body can take.
Right.
to pay that off.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be 3 years, 2 years, 3, 4, 5 years even.
Yeah.
To pay off that much. And to, and especially depending on what drinks you're getting. Yeah. So if you're getting like a vanilla or a mocha, that are a little bit more expensive than.
I think Jimmy was saying, if it was Jimmy, he was saying something along the lines of he has 3 coffees a day. So morning filter, afternoon espresso, and like a nightcap.
Okay.
So like a decaf.
Yeah.
So if you're doing 3 a day, then
that
3 times, let's say your base price for a beverage is, $4, which we all know like prices are skyrocketing right now with beverages. So even like $4 or $5, you're looking at about $12 to $15 a day. Yeah. They're spending. So
wait, for 3 beverages?
Yeah.
No, for 3 beverages, it's
$4 or $5.
Oh, more like 15, but
yeah, 15, 12 to $15, let's say.
Plus a tip.
There
tip your baristas. I'm telling you, if you don't tip your baristas, you're heartless.
Yeah, totally.
Listen, folks, better take care of your baristas.
So more or less, you're looking like $15, $20. Let's say even the minimum of $15. And quick math, times 30. 15 times 3 is 4. That's $450 a month. That's big. If you're doing it 7 days a week. 7 days a week.
Fair enough.
So multiply that times 10. That's $4,500 right there. So there you go. You have basically an espresso machine and a grinder in a year.
Wow. I'll take that back. You're not heartless if you don't tip your baristas, but yes, you should. Anyway, yeah, that's actually way more than I was expecting. So actually, it is to a certain extent actually worth getting a decent. It doesn't have to be a massive setup, but a decent setup. Then you can pay that off pretty. Yeah. But that also means like taking into account you're doing 3 a day. Yeah. But not only are you doing 3 a day, but that means you're never going out for coffee.
Yes,
or exactly. That's in addition. Yeah. So
it's an exaggeration, for sure.
But still, especially for example, like if you and Deja are doing it, then that's what then getting that 3 in is very easy. Yep. That's 1 for you, 1 for her, and then well, you're. I usually have more than 1 cup a day, so very, very interesting.
We're also not considering the fact of baristas are actually skilled. Like there's a skill to do what they do. Yeah. So I'm speaking from a point of view of like, man, and this is part of the conversation about me grabbing that espresso machine is thinking like, man, I'm a skilled barista. I worked in coffee long enough. I can just, do this kind of at home. It's not that simple. And it's also not that simple for someone who has never worked in coffee to pull same style of espresso as a cafe would with commercial equipment. That's like, all the equipment in a cafe is like, I don't know what, $100,000.
Right. You're 50 right. Grand, there's a much different experience. There's a lot of things that depending on your skill, just skill level and your quality of brew is going to change, even though I think that gap is narrowing down more and more with technology and education, which we've talked about that. Yep. But okay, so you bought this machine. Why are you taking it back now? What happened?
Sticky situation, but I bought it from a buddy. Yeah. From a regular in the cafe.
Nice.
And he was very generous about like, hey, you don't have to pay for it. Just grab it and then pay me later. Yeah. And I was, my thought process was, here's an older machine.
It's a lever machine.
It's a lever machine, which I've always wanted a lever machine. Yeah. That's kind of like, I even wanted like a Lapovini or something that was very classic, simple to use, all the basics, no crazy like displays, you know what I mean? I wanted to get down to the basics. That was my goal. We talked about that in the last podcast. Don't overcomplicate things. And that was my goal. I was thinking about it. I was like, man, this would be great just to pull some rippers at home and not worry about it. But I think I oversimplified the concept of pulling espresso at home because I am so conditioned to pulling fantastic espresso and I don't even think about what I'm using, the equipment I'm using, the flow, the setup. I'm not thinking about that. So I got this machine, set it up, pulled my first shot, and I was like, cool. It's kind of fine. Tastes like coffee. It's great. Then tried to replicate it, and I couldn't even replicate an average shot at home.
Wow.
And so I started diving in and doing research because even though I'm like a professional, like barista, like the home barista world is slightly different, especially the niche crowd of home espresso baristas. Like, I mean, y'all folks who are listening are smart, like insanely smart and talented, especially those folks, ripping on a decent or something like that.
Yeah.
But this little Expo bar machine was so simple and so basic that the coffees I was trying to pull was very challenging. Just very challenging to even dial in. I saw that there was major fluctuation in pressure in the group. There's no temperature or PID, so I don't know like how temperature consistent it is. I don't know what's going on there. Even because I'm using like my Comandante or the Fellow to grind for espresso. I mean, that concept was challenging. The flow was challenging, and then the reward of just having not so tasty coffee was super hard. But I also did pull some of the darker roast coffee that we had. And again, the results were like, just dropped it in, pulled it, kind of eyeballed it, just coffee. And that's what I found is like, man, these more developed coffees, especially the one shot I pulled, was just, if you're just looking for something just that tastes like coffee without any nuance, it'll work. But to actually get that enjoyment that I get from pulling like these tasty espressos, it was super challenging. I was kind of disappointed that the simplicity of a machine like that was not enough, that I actually needed more tech to take care of the stuff that I wasn't normally thinking about day to day.
So was it the tech, or I guess because we're talking about something older machine, was it just the engineering of the machine that just wasn't up to par with what we have recently in these newer home espresso machines?
Yeah, of course, all of that. There's just a lot of limitations when you can't, one, temperature, right? When it's not a temperature stable machine, there's a lot of limitations. And you can say there's like workarounds. You can flush the machine, but then it's a P-stat, so you lower the pressure. But then when you pack your shot and start pulling espresso, the pressure isn't consistent. It fluctuates. So that has to do with the engineering of the machine. It's just very, very simple engineering.
For sure.
So
yeah, that's interesting. That that just makes me think of like, man, how far or how much all these things that we get to use today are just, we take so much for granted. Like, I mean, we see this in the coffee world for sure, but even in the camera world now, like a lot of people are like, man, I need to get a better camera to shoot these better things and shoot these better ads or shoot better content. And I'm like, dude, when I was shooting, when I was starting out, I was shooting in 720p.
For sure.
Just pure pixelated 60 frames a second slow-mo at 720p that barely held together. Barely.
Yeah.
And then now the base model, you can get a cheap base model camera that was released in the last 4 years that does at least 1080p, and the 1080 looks great.
Yeah.
Let alone most of them can now do 4K. Yeah. It's just we've just become, I think, so desensitized. I think that's the word. To the beautiful modern things that are actually becoming now the base.
Yeah.
Even the base has now risen so much where, you probably have better luck stock just by itself pulling a shot of espresso out of, a Bambino or the Breville Express than a machine like that.
Right. But that also has a lot to do with like my familiarity with commercial machines over home machines.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be honest. I just don't. That was the first time I had an espresso machine in my home. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't have the experience of using prosumer or consumer equipment. So I don't know the adjustments you need to make. I don't even have the expectation of what's a good home shot. You know what I mean? Not talking about the folks who are brewing on Decents and GS3s and basically small commercial machines at home. Yeah. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about a prosumer machine.
Yeah.
So there is a lack of knowledge But also what it revealed is I am so used to and comfortable with a lot of the things that these pieces of equipment have taken care of that I just don't think about.
Yeah.
I may talk about, oh yeah, this machine has great, temp stability, or this grinder just has a very good uniform particle size. Like I talk about those things, but I don't necessarily always have the advantage of like comparing the two in real life, So it also is a little knock at myself. Like I thought I was the hero in this situation, and I could just grab a very simple machine and, with all my knowledge, pull some rippers. And that's not the case. Like equipment does matter to a degree. Like going back to your example, it would be very foolish of me, like picking up a Rebel and with a lens that shoots at like 4.5 aperture and try to get bokeh that looks like a crispy 85 at 1.2.
Yeah.
Like you can't. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
You can compose the shot, you can take the shot, but it won't look like that other lens.
Yeah.
And I think that's my mindset, was like, how hard could it be, kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I mean, going back to that analogy as well, it's like oftentimes people say gear doesn't matter. And most of the time I will say, well, it doesn't matter. You're right. Yeah. There's people shooting stuff on iPhones that are doing a spectacular job, like winning awards for shooting stuff on an iPhone. But then at the end of the day, I'm like, well, that's not fully true because I know what it's like to shoot on a camera that just doesn't pull that way. There's so many limiting factors that doesn't allow for things to look good, or having, the wrong lighting is going to make your life substantially harder. When, if you have nice lighting, you click a button, all of a sudden everything just looks beautiful, no matter where you turn, point the camera. And I think that just resonates with, this espresso talk, where I think machines have gotten really great over the last, handful of years, where this home barista, niche has grown. And now, just recently, La Marzocco released a Linear
Micro?
Micro or Micro, something like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, even companies like that are like, oh wait, so we have the Linear Mini, but let's make something even smaller that hopefully can cater to another audience like that. And it's like, oh, that means that, there's a growing trend of that. And it's leading to these machines becoming really great. Yeah. But then, it's also a lot of the tech that's taking care of, like your tasty shot of espresso is because somebody programmed things to work the right way and put in the right engineering. Not to say also that you can't pull rippers on an older machine. You probably can. They would just take way more work to get there.
Yeah, that's the good. Thanks for thanks for nailing on that point right there, because that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying it's like completely impossible with the right knowledge. Even if maybe you're a little more handy than me and you have like the audacity like to take the machine apart and tweak and add. I'm not saying that you can't do that and pull rippers. You can. But because I'm conditioned and used to having everything kind of done for me in the machine, it was very difficult. Again, my other thought is like, I'm trying to pull espresso with modern style of coffee, and my expectation is this modern light roast kind of version of coffee. When this machine was a little bit older, I'm not saying they didn't serve light roast back then, but coffees were a little more developed back then. Or even take older machines, they were producing good tasting coffee, but they were producing coffee. People were brewing coffee that was easier or different method of extraction than with a light roast.
I think that's how all technology works, really. Technology and innovation works because of the current state, but also where people are going and what people are asking for. So it makes a lot of sense for people 40 years ago to be building machinery that is to the best of their scientific knowledge, which is also a limitation, but also catering to what people are enjoying at the time. Yeah. And light roast wasn't popular back then. Like, that's just the reality of it. Yeah. Most things were being roasted pretty darker. Yeah. And so it makes sense why a machine manufacturer would keep that in mind. Yeah. It's a smart thing to keep in mind. With the same reason why nowadays home machines are keeping in mind, flow rates and pressure profiling and all these things, where it's like, dude, like, you really don't need all of that, but they're keeping that in mind because that's where coffee culture is right now. Yeah. That's where it's going. That's why, the coffees these people are putting in there are most of the time probably going to be like a lighter roast. I'm generalizing. Yeah. So don't kill me for this, but most of the time they're lighter roasts. They have nuance. They're very complex, sometimes a little bit more rare and expensive. But also a lot of those coffees also they have a fine window of where they taste good. Yeah. If you over extract a really beautiful coffee, like over extracted by far, it's probably not going to taste good. And if you under extract it, which with light roast, it's equally as easy to under extract it, it's not going to taste good. So the tech actually has to support the ability the tech has to support the desire and where what we're trying to, the capabilities of what we're trying to do in today's world, but also in tomorrow. Like even like Lance, I watched Lance Hendricks video today about the new Linea Mini, and he's like, "Well, there's no pressure profiling on this, and there's no flow rate adjustments, and I think something like that." Yeah. And I was like, that's got me thinking. I'm like, oh, interesting. Like he's like, well, I wouldn't buy it for the price that they're asking for because it doesn't have these things, and I'm like, oh, interesting. That's becoming a norm for you. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 years that just becomes a standard. Now it'll become a standard, just like pre-infusion in machines has also become. Yeah. Yeah. And exactly. That hasn't always been the case.
Yeah. You're summing everything I'm saying up really, really well. Yeah. It's wild that now Lance can say something like that, and there's a big enough home barista crowd that would be like, oh, that's a deciding factor. Yeah. You step a decade away or a little more than a decade away. That wasn't even really a conversation, and the home barista crowd has exploded. So I think that's where my difficulty was. The transition from all that cafe equipment to trying to do something without that tech and without that engineering is just dang.
Which, as we wrap up, I'm just gonna end this with a couple thoughts that are coming to. Oh, excuse me. Thoughts that are coming to mind, which is, it's crazy that we talk about tech right now like this, but it's like, okay, if we're thinking about it like this over the last 20 years or whatever, the difficulty is like thinking like 20 years ahead. Like recently I saw like a big cafe transition to like really automatic machines, like machines that are, one button and it's grinding and it's brewing espresso. It's just spitting out. You pretty much just click a button and it spits out your drink, really. And that's very taboo. Yeah. And stuff like, either automatic, steaming or all these things are very taboo in the industry because we still feel like we need to have a hand on certain things. Like I remember when the Pour Steady just came to Camber, and we had that conversation about like, but is that wrong or is that right? Or like, how do you feel about a machine making a pour over for you, just a single cup? Is that good or bad? Yeah. And I think that's a lot of things why it's a lot of times what we wrestle with, even though now looking back, we're like, yeah, hooray, we made so much advancements. But it's like, well, I bet, 20 years from now, I'm going to be the old person who opposes all those innovations and is like, dude, you guys are way too automated.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about, I'm trying to think of some of my first coffee experiences, like at Black Drop, even beforehand. That in general, the coffee experience has changed.
Yeah.
You know, so I think if we just observe what's happened in the last 20 years in the like the cafe model to kind of forecast and what will happen 20 years, there's definitely this progression that could potentially use automation, but use it in a very different way where it doesn't take away from the coffee experience. I think there's potential for that. It's hard for me to even say that because I still use a hand tamper. Like I still use my, what's it called? My Big Step. Yeah. So I'm at work. I tamp every single shot. In some cafes, that's long gone. Like the puck press is the way to go. And I don't have anything about the puck. Don't have any gripe with the puck press. It's just I want to hand tamp every single shot, even if I'm tamping about 100 plus shots a day.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And is that right or wrong? I don't know. But if the coffee experience has shifted a little bit, and we use all of that tech and innovation to still provide great coffee, great tasting coffee, and a better experience, it just looks different. Who knows? Like it's hard for me to even say that because I don't want the simplicity of my coffee experience to ever go away today. Yeah. But I wonder what I would have said if I worked in coffee 20 years ago.
For sure. Yeah, I think Alex Rosas and his couple buddies, they have a podcast called the Brew Crew Pod.
Oh, yeah.
And I gave it a listen to the last episode, and they were talking about how at Coffee Fest, Mavum has a machine that does everything for you. It grinds, it tamps, it brews, and all you get is that group head over the counter.
Oh, nice. You press a button, just
disperses.
That's wild.
Your shot.
Yeah.
Everything's automated underneath. And that to me was like, I was like, I don't know, that's kind of conflicting.
Yeah. That's a hard pill for me to swallow.
Yeah. And same with the same goes for a lot of things like coffee producing, it like this whole innovation of things really shaking things up. I don't know. But anyways, that's that, folks. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm-Up Sessions podcast. If you're on YouTube, make sure you drop a comment below. Let me know, do you care about innovation? Do you care about things becoming automated? And is it weird to hear that you're already used to a lot of automation right now that you're already using that you actually can't live without? It's kind of weird. But thanks for listening once again. We appreciate you. Hit that subscribe button. Leave us a review. But in other words, remember, reflect what's good.